not Abuja. There are so many things wrong with the aviation sector, but I'll leave it to the NCAA, who are already investigating this incident to forestall future recurrence. In response to the incident, the aviation industry and its agencies have reached a resolution. And Minister Keyamo has outlined the following measures. Number 1, sanctions for the dispatcher and all involved parties. Keyamo emphasized the need for accountability, stating that sanctions will be applied where necessary. He added that the dispatcher who dispatched that plane and everyone involved will be interviewed and sanctions will be applied. Number 2, mandatory presence of a Nigerian pilot on the jump seats for all incoming wet leases. Acknowledging the lack of familiarity of foreign crews with the Nigerian terrain, Keyamo insists that henceforth every wet leasing entering Nigeria must have a Nigerian pilot present on the jump seats. I thought this should go without saying. If you are bringing a wet lease to Nigeria, your cabin crews should be Nigerian. We hope these stringent measures will be implemented because Nigerians have lost confidence in the safety and reliability of all Nigerians. And that's a wrap on True News. You can follow us on any of our social media handles and leave us comments. We'd certainly like to hear from you.
Money they want to allocate, if they can give skills to the youth, because the masses of unemployment is high over here in Nigeria. So, and if I want to allocate the money, we all still knows that the some federal people who are on top, you know what I'm trying to say, who are top are going to still take the money. So, if they want to allocate money in Nigeria, I let them, give it to people to go and learn skills like China. They do it, they produce, they learn skills. Is that by us wasting our TikTok on something that is not making sense? Because when you enter China, you open their TikTok, you see what they are doing down here in Nigeria. So they should help the youths to do skills in Nigeria.
Actually, it is a welcome development. If federal government can establish 32 universities in Nigeria, it is a welcome development, and is the way of creating value to a young one in the country. Education is very, very important. With education, we can move forward in technology and so many things in this country. But if federal government can make it possible, after creating education for her citizens, and they can create a job for the youth, it will be very, very important. Because after equip a younger one with education, at the end of the day, you see a graduate on the street looking for one thing in order to eat. I heard the story of one state like that when a first-class graduate went and steal bread because of hunger, and he was beaten to death. What is the value of that education now? A first-class graduate went and steal bread because of hunger. Imagine that. So, if federal government can make something, can create a job for youth, it will be very, very important.
I'm saying it's not a priority because there are lots of universities we have in Nigeria, which some students are looking for admission. Sometimes they will not even give them what they want. They will give them another another course that they didn't request for. You understand? Which is making it difficult for them to access admission. But if they make all these things available, there is no need for any increment of other universities or institutes. It's one of the things, because now almost every year they go on strike because the government are not paying them well. What they deserve, they are not giving them. So everybody would like to go. As a youth that I am, I'm still a student. If I have the chance, I'll leave because they are not doing what is necessary.
So when you go to the east, but our road is not good. Our road is not good for our leaders to go and see that very site. Maybe you don't know about Enugu, or I don't know if you know that site, but that place is not okay. Like some people that went to that university of UNN, they find it difficult to even come back for holiday and go back. Kidnappers are much that side. So if you don't have money to fly, you'll be afraid of going by land.
Yeah, of course, people need to be educated. If you're educated, you cannot go into any kind of violent activities or whatever. You have to be educated. Someone that go to school and study 5, 6, 7 years course, you cannot carry gun and be going up and down. Say, education is very, very important. Yes.
Don't bring any impact on the educational sectors because we have available educational sectors which they are supposed to empower it and then make it work the way it's supposed, and it's not working that way. So then bringing more of it, which others are still available and they're not doing the right thing, it will not add any impact. It might be in the further time, but for now, it's not a priority.
I want to know my opinions about the judiciary. I will tell you, Nigeria is a work in progress. And so far so good. I don't think judiciary has been doing bad. You know, one thing about like what Mr. Fagbemi said, the Minister for Justice, that politicians should be mindful of what they say. You know, if we decide to bring down the nation because of your defeats, your political defeats, then at the end of the day, we need to understand that judiciary is the last hope of common man. So regardless of what happened, maybe in the presidential, the governorship, from the high court, down to the supreme, we just need to respect the opinion of our judiciary body. And you know, if you lose today, for the fact that you have been defeated today doesn't mean you can't win tomorrow. So there is no need for us to like let's just put it down because you think the judgment is not served in your favor. Then judiciary should go down for you. No. For now, I don't really see anything bad in the judicial system. Like I said, Nigeria is a work in progress.
When you look at the judgment coming out from the appeal court, even from the tribunal, you see a lot of discrepancy. And the same issue, you see different judgments. Then with that, you can say the judiciary, they are actually corrupt. Yes, the justice is not be done. Yes, there is discrepancy based on, I think it's money bag. It's all about how much you can give. If you have the money, they give you the judgment. If you don't have it, then you lose out.
Focus on God and, be united and put things together, The judiciary, they just have to like sit down and, do something like a meeting and settle things and put things together. That's what I can say. It's not that I'm satisfied, but I just don't know what to say. I'm short of words. I'm tired of talking, lamenting, complaining about Nigerian every day and night. It's not. I don't understand. I'm just tired. I just have to leave everything to God.
Attorney General should not be talking like that. I think you also see what the judgment coming out from different places. You see the Kano State issue and the same issue in other states. And from some states, they will tell you that pre-election matter is strictly for the party. But other aspects, you see they will say pre-election matter, is something else actually. The truth of the matter is that the judiciary, they are not be fair to all.
Because of transportation, and it's not like that before. Even our forefather, namely Tafawa Balewa, Ajikiwe, Awolo, they are not happy. We are not independent. That's what we are know. Look at the way I trek all the way from far away. No work, everything. I'm looking here and there to see what to do. Sometimes they are kidnapping people along the road here and there. Students are finished to graduate, they don't see what to do. If you don't have fear of God as I have, you may think of going to devil's advice. May devil not be our portion in Jesus' name. We pray for this country and let the peace reign. Let the truth be revealed.
In support of the annual 16 Days of Activism campaign against gender-based violence, GBV, which kicked off November 25th, Tabitha Harris has launched an admirable initiative called Digital. Through this project, Tabitha aims to educate 300 women across 3 states in Nigeria.
So Digital is actually an initiative to support women on how to promote their businesses online. Also, in between, help them access smartphones, because it's not just the training, but how they get smartphones. And in between too, they also use our foundation to be able to help them seek grants to be able to scale.
Leveraging her expertise as a digital creator, Tech Hub, co-founder of Go Virtual Africa and Microsoft's most valuable professional, she seeks to empower women who have experienced or are at a risk of abuse by their partners.
We discovered that most women that are actually vulnerable to violence are actually due to financial stability. Most, not all though, but most. So when these women are actually financially stable, they won't be able to go out there and be vulnerable to violence, vulnerable to abuse and others. And in between also, we are using our foundation to also find a way partner with top security agency in the country to be able to provide security to our community.
Tabitha plans to commence the first round of training in the Federal Capital Territory, FCT, followed by Kaduna and Oyo states. She stresses the importance of working together, but is thankful for the training assistance provided by the Ministry of Women Affairs. The unveiling ceremony, which took place at Venture Park in Maitama, saw the presence of distinguished guests, including a representative from the U.S. Embassy's Public Affairs Department, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, various NGOs, and the owner of Venture Park.
For Harris Care and the initiative they unfolded here today, I think is a whole lot. Financial literacy is one area, especially for women. Not just the entrepreneurs, but the ones that are even poor, the market women, those that are at the local level, whatever you can do to encourage them to know what to do with the little money they are making, how to invest it so it will yield more dividends, I think is a whole lot. And in most societies, they're the primary caregivers. So if you educate a woman, like they will say, you've educated a community. So if you empower a woman, so to speak, you've empowered the family.
So far, men have mostly taken over in all communities and all sectors. So women are actually coming up to that. But so about curbing into the gender-based violence, this will give women a sense of belonging and the knowledge on how to do business in the digital economy so far. As we are in the business world, in the digital world, learning about digitizing whatever business they do, small-scale businesses or enterprises, if they can be able to digitize their businesses, that will help them in especially being financially independent.
The 16-day global campaign against GBV, culminating on Human Rights Day on December 10th, is a collaborative effort among UN agencies, humanitarian organizations, and civil society groups worldwide. This year's theme, Unite, Invest to Prevent Violence Against Women and Girls, highlights the urgent need to address factors such as economic crisis, conflicts, climate change, and digital technologies that facilitate violence.
Wait there.
Mr. President is also committed to the budget process and its integrity. So he wants to ensure that monies that are appropriated will be can be spent in the period for which they are appropriated. One. And then in terms of presentation of the budget, Mr. President has been engaging with the National Assembly leadership, even ahead of the presentation, to say, these are our assumptions, these are our thought processes, so that it can reduce the lead time for which the budget has to go through such considerations, because these are
bold, brave, courageous, and decisive measures that Mr. President has taken is being rewarded by processing for Nigeria $1.5 billion of immediate financing, which is provided that we do everything on our own side, it will be in before the end of the year.
I am here today confident that the National Assembly will continue to work closely with us to ensure that the deliberations on the 2024 budget are thorough but also concluded with reasonable dispatch. Our goal is for the Appropriation Act to come to effect on the 1st of January 2024. I trust you will do it. It is by now a matter of recorded history that my first physical intervention as president of this great nation was to end the fuel subsidy regime, which has proven to be so harmful to the overall health of our national economy. The second was to negotiate and subsequently present a supplementary budget to enable my government to fund the items needed to restore macroeconomic stability and mitigate the harsh impact of subsidy removal. The third was to secure a second supplementary budget, this time to enable us to keep our promises to promote national security, invest in infrastructure, and provide much needed support to the most vulnerable households in our society. In swearing in my cabinet and reflecting on the unique challenges facing us, I invited the ministers to imagine that we are attempting to draw water from a dry well. Today, I stand before you to present our budget of renewed hope, a budget which will go further than ever before in cementing macroeconomic stability, reducing the deficit, increasing capital spending, and allocation to reflect the 8 priority areas of this administration. The budget we now present constitute a foundation upon which we shall erect the future of this great nation. Analyzing prevailing economic environment, economic conditions remains challenging both abroad and at home. Despite lingering post-COVID supply and production bottlenecks, armed conflict in various parts of the world, and restrictive monetary policies in major economies, we expect global growth to hover around 3%.
Hi, this is True News, where we give you the news behind the news. There is a looming crisis in the education sector over the mass exodus of teachers. The president of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, Professor Emmanuel Oshodeke, recently said thousands of lecturers are leaving universities across Nigeria daily. It's like a teacher migration party and everyone is invited. ASU chairman at the Usmanu Danfodio University, Sokoto, said about 100 lecturers have left the university, while the union at the Federal University of Gusau, Zamfara, disclosed that the institution is in need of about 1,000 lecturers to fill the vacancies created by those who had left. Earlier this year, the country was in uproar because medical doctors, thousands of them, were leaving the country in droves. They're still heading out, by the way, heading abroad for better opportunities. And who can blame them? In Nigerian parlance, if na you unko, especially when you're dealing with strikes, poor salaries, and uncertain economy. Now, this teacher exodus isn't just a minor inconvenience. It's a full-blown crisis. It's no news that Nigeria has the highest number of out-of-school children in the world. It's like we're leading the pack in a race that no one wants to win. So what's the lesson here? It's time for Nigeria to invest more in education and create an environment where teachers, lecturers feel valued and supported. At number 2, according to the Constitution, the health of a person aspiring to hold the office of governor of a state is a crucial factor. This means that good health is not just a personal matter for the governor, but a matter of public concern. Following the constitutional crisis that was created by the illness of President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, his refusal to transmit a letter disclosing his inability to discharge the function of his office to the National Assembly, the state of interregnum and governance vacuum that was foisted on Nigerians, a new subsection 190 of the Constitution was substituted for the old section 190. The amendment now compels a governor to transmit a communication of unavailability or incapacity to discharge the function of his office to the Speaker of the House of Assembly within 21 days, failing which the Speaker of the House of Assembly shall mandate the Deputy Governor to act as governor, pending when the governor transmits a letter to the Speaker of the House of Assembly that he is available to resume his functions. Governor Rotimi Akeredolu of Ondo State has been holed up at his private residence in Ibadan, Oyo State, since returning from Germany on medical leave for over 2 months. And citizens of Ondo are asking, why is the governor holding executive council meetings in a different state when his own state is not unsafe? It's a valid question, right? There's been a lot of hush-hush conversations around this. And so some prominent people in the state and across the Southwest region had a closed-door meeting with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on Friday to intervene in the crisis arising from the governor's ill health. Friday's meeting was supposed to declare him incapacitated and swear in his deputy governor, Luckily Aiyedatiwa. In fact, the Ondo State chapter of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, supporters have given Governor Oluwarotimi Akeredolu a 72-day ultimatum to transmit power to his deputy, Mr. Aiyedatiwa, or face their consequences. It has come to this. The governor should prioritize the well-being of the state and its people. Governor Akeredolu has had an illustrious career as a senior advocate of Nigeria and now as a governor for a second term in office. The best decision is to step aside and focus on his recovery. At number 3, get this. Malawi's president, Lazarus Chakwera, has suspended all international travel for himself and his government in an effort to save money. Now, you might be thinking, hey, that's a responsible move. And you'll be right. But here's the kicker. If you replace Malawi with Nigeria, you'll be describing the exact situation of our country right now. It's like a bad case of copy and paste with no regard for the people. Do you recall last month when the leadership of the National Assembly decided to buy luxury cars for lawmakers? Why? Because they wanted vehicles that would survive Nigerian roads for 4 whole years. They called it work tools. Can you believe it? The outcry was massive, and rightfully so. But guess what? It's not just about the lawmakers. Ministries, departments, agencies, you name them, are all splurging on new cars. But wait, there's more. The Benue State government reportedly spent a whopping 34.44 billion naira on special day celebrations, welfare packages, security votes, and office supplies. That's not all. Borno, Cross River, Delta, Ebonyi, Ekiti, Enugu, Gombe, Imo, Jigawa, Kaduna, Kano, Katsina, Kebbi, Kwara, pretty much almost all the governors in Nigeria have all had their fair share of frivolous spending. They've collectively thrown away billions of naira on unnecessary items. And it seems like the mismanagement and diversion of public funds are becoming a national pastime. I don't know about you, but when I hear about all this wasteful spending, it makes my head spin. It's like a never-ending cycle of greed and incompetence. We need leaders who prioritize the needs of the people and manage public funds responsibly. That's it on True News. Leave us your comments. We certainly would like to hear back from you. Follow us on all our social media platforms at Roots TV Nigeria.
President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has made his first budget presentation since assuming office on May 29, 2023. The 27.5 trillion naira budget was unveiled to lawmakers at the National Assembly on Wednesday. Tinubu arrived at the complex accompanied by the Chief of Staff, Femi Gbajabiamila, the National Chairman of the All Progressives Congress APC, Abdullahi Ganduje, and other dignitaries. The Senate had granted the President's request to present the budget to a joint session with the House of Representatives. The proposed budget for 2024 is 26% higher than the previous year, totaling 20.51 trillion naira, presented by former President Muhammadu Buhari in 2022. Prior to the budget presentation, President Tinubu had submitted the 2024 to 2026 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper to the National Assembly. The initial proposal of 26.1 trillion naira for total expenditure was adjusted upwards by 1.5 trillion naira, following an increase in oil prices and a reduction in the naira exchange rate. President Tinubu addressed the joint session, highlighting the overhaul of the nation's internal security architecture to enhance law enforcement capabilities and ensure the safety of life, property, and investments across the country. The proposed budget places a strong emphasis on human capital development.
I am here today confident that the National Assembly will continue to work closely with us to ensure that the deliberations on the 2024 budget are thorough but also concluded with reasonable dispatch. Our goal is for the Appropriation Act to come to effect on the 1st of January 2024. I trust you will do it. It is by now a matter of recorded history that my first physical intervention as president of this great nation was to end the fuel subsidy regime, which has proven to be so harmful to the overall health of our national economy. The second was to negotiate and subsequently present a supplementary budget to enable my government to fund the items needed to restore macroeconomic stability and mitigate the harsh impact of subsidy removal.
President of the Senate, Senator Godswill Akpabio, urged President Bola Tinubu to bar ministers and heads of federal governments, ministries, departments, and agencies from embarking on foreign trips. He assured the President that the 2024 appropriation bill will be accorded accelerated consideration and passage, which will be done before the end of the year.
Request that the President would mandate honorable ministers and heads of agencies to avoid foreign travels during this period of our engagements with them. That will prevent them from dishonoring the invitation of the chambers of the National Assembly. They will promptly appear before our committees to defend their budget estimates. We will not want to wait for them. Otherwise, we will lose time, and time is not on our hands.
Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas, said Nigerians expect quick, sustainable solutions to economic hardship. He assured Nigerians of their participation in the budgeting process and eventual approval of the 2024 budget for transparency and accountability. He said in order to establish public support, the House of Representatives will convene the first National Citizens Budget Town Hall meeting to harness public input and opinions on this budget.
Mr. President, it is a well-known fact that millions of our constituents are living through incredibly difficult times. For this reason, they also look to your own administration to provide quick and sustainable solutions. The antecedents of the President and your track record in governance inspire a lot of people and hope in Nigerians. Mr. President, it is for this reason that we cannot afford to fail Nigerians. If anyone can change the road and chart a new course for Nigeria, it is emphatically you. In our recent engagement with MDAs on the MTEF, we emphasized the need for revenue-generating agencies to double their targets to meet the 18 trillion revenue projected in the budget. Mr. President, the effectiveness and legitimacy of fiscal policies depend to a very large extent on public support. As the People's House, and in line with our legislative agenda, the House of Representatives will convene the first National Citizens Budget Town Hall to harness public input and opinion on this budget. We are convinced that this will increase transparency and accountability, improve policy making, and increase trust in government. Public participation in the budgetary process has been shown to improve resource allocation and service delivery, as well as a more stable and robust economy.
Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Abubakar Bagudu, confirmed that the Federal Executive Council had approved the 2024 appropriation bill with an aggregate expenditure of 27.5 trillion, reflecting an increase of over 1.5 trillion naira from the previous estimate.
Even before this budget, there has been two supplementary appropriations. One that he inherited of 819, given his skills, he renegotiated that budget with the National Assembly and achieved realignment, money being moved from one function to the other, and he got 500 billion, which was used to support palliatives for the vulnerable following the fuel prices deregulation. Is equally the 2023 second supplementary appropriation, which was designed to provide money to the defense sector and urgent infrastructure works, particularly before the rainy season, before the next rainy season, as well as promises that were made to the Nigerian Labour Congress and the TUC, as well as the vulnerable population, 400 billion to support. And all these are being implemented peacefully.
After the presentation, several members of the National Assembly spoke with correspondents, assuring Nigerians that they will diligently scrutinize the budget to ensure it addresses the needs of all.
That we'll be able to pass it in the next few weeks. Some important points for you to note is that it came in good enough time for us to be able to carry out the necessary scrutiny ahead of it being passed before December 31st, because Mr. President has said, and we agree, that we should align it, the financial year from January to December. So we're going to have a budget that's effective before January 1st. Absolutely 100%, especially with the People's House. You'll see in line with our legislative agenda that it's one of the things that we've promised. At every point in time that we're going to engage with this budget, every committee that's engaged in ministries, departments, and agencies, we're going to put the people first. And you see from Mr. Speaker's speech, Right Honorable Abbas Tajuddin, he promised that we're going to have a budget town hall, which is happening for the first time. So that says a whole lot.
For me, first of all, it's about the revenue to be generated internally. And then how this translates to the well-being of the people. So if people are still paying the same amount of money in terms of rent or petrol or whatever it is, there's a problem. So we need to have a budget that will be meaningful to the well-being of the people at the end of the day. That is what matters. It's not about 24 trillion naira or how many billions of dollars. That's not what the common man in the street wants to hear. He wants to hear how this will impact on him or her life.
It is possible when and if all hands get on deck. The budget cannot be, the process cannot be consummated without the ministers, chief executives of various MDAs appearing as at when due. So really and truly, I expected the leadership of the National Assembly to have been emphatic on drawing the attention of the president for him to be assertive on his ministers and chief executives of MDAs to make themselves available, because this is a serious business. And if that does not happen, then it is not going to be possible for us to achieve that as expected by the president. So that's why I said if all hands get on deck, it is possible. Otherwise, it will be a mere rhetoric.
I don't think there is anywhere he said 45% of the budget will be for debt service. No. He said 45% of it, there will be revenue. The revenue composition of the budget will be 45%, not 45% debt servicing. Exactly. So, I don't know what you want to say. We have received the budget that has been tagged the budget of renewed hope. The president has submitted a budget size of 27.5 trillion, and for the first time, he has also told the whole world that he has a budget whose deficit is going down and the capital spending is going up. By that, it shows that for the first time, we are having a paradigm shift of what we used to have in the past to that is new. And we want to believe that this is a trend that will continue into a foreseeable future for the next 4 years, so that Nigeria can witness for the first time a government who have lessened its borrowing and also taking up its capital expenditure. So I believe it's a right step in the right direction. And I want to say that the president has also emphasized on the issue of revenue generation drive, because all that has put before us today, it's about revenue. And a lot of reform are being put in place to ensure that there is enough revenue within the purse so that the budget can be well funded.
Here are the key highlights of the Renewed Hope budget. Better investment environment, increased human capital development and reduced poverty, and greater access to social security. At number 2, defense and internal security are top priority. More sustainable model to fund tertiary education to be implemented. The student loan scheme will become operational by January 2024. Expectations of the economy to grow by a minimum of 76% above the world average forecast. Inflation is expected to moderate to 21.4% for 2024. Government will adopt an oil price benchmark of the $96 per barrel and daily oil production estimate of 1.78 million barrels per day to match the world oil market. Government will adopt 1 naira to US dollar exchange rate of 750 naira per US dollar for 2024. Meanwhile, the People's Democratic Party, PDP, has criticized President Bola Tinubu's 2024 budget, describing it as a disservice that will further burden Nigerians and lead the country into economic hardship. The PDP, in a statement by its National Publicity Secretary, Honorable Debo Ologunagba, accused the budget of containing heavily padded figures, duplicated items, and false statistics. The opposition party called on the National Assembly to reject the budget, citing concerns about an impending increase in taxes and interest rates that will adversely affect the productive sector. The PDP urged the legislature to use its constitutional duty to deassemble the budget and prioritize provisions crucial to economic growth and the welfare of Nigerians.
Over 28,000 cases of gender-based violence have been reported nationwide. In all these reported cases, Over 9,000 have been opened against offenders, while over 8,000 are still pending in various courts, as over 1,800 cases have been withdrawn, either by the courts, community intervention, family and victims that have become afraid or intimidated to withdraw the case. The number of convictions are only 455, and sadly, the number of fatalities from GBV are over 1,250.
As politicians, we also know that most of us in this room, about 70 to 60% of those who voted for us are women. The men can collect the money at 8.1 on an election day, while you see the women queuing under sun and rain with children on their back to vote so that we can be in these chambers. I think we'll just be doing justice to the foundation of our own, of our system, by not only passing motions like the UN is doing without teeth to bite. We should pass laws with appropriate tools and encourage the police to enforce those laws and prosecute.
Co-sponsored by 16 other senators. Nigerian women, just like women across Africa and the world, have suffered greatly, not only in the hands of our fellow men, but sometimes even women, sometimes even in organizations where we work. And therefore, I'd lend my voice in calling for a stop in all form of violence against girls, children, schools, workplaces, and also ask that all the agencies that are responsible in mitigating this flaw step up in their responsibilities so that our women will have a safe place to live and thrive.
I think we should go beyond the rhetorics. We should go beyond the rhetoric and try to find our adequate laws that will sufficiently cover some of the gaps in our society. But before I raise my case, sir, it is always important. It takes two to tango. The women folk also must at every given time know their position in society. You men, as they listen, to also rise to the occasion. They are human beings like every other of us, and therefore they must not allow themselves to play second fiddle. They are not second fiddle. They are the important foundation of every human society.
I also want to plead with women that as we are supporting them, the entire chambers is yellow in support of women and the girl child, that we abhor violence against women in all ramifications, that women should also try not to violate the rights of men. Because I lived near somebody in Port Harcourt many years ago that the wife constantly beats the man. And the man used to cry and call on neighbors to come and assist him. So I know that those ones are in the minority. But please, as we protect the rights of women, we should also protect the rights of men. There are men who are suffering under their wives. There are many men who are groaning and nobody is listening to them because United Nations has not yet taken up the issue of violence against men. On that note, I thank all of us for your contributions and urge that God Almighty will give all of us the wisdom to protect the women and protect the girl child. May we rise to observe a minute silence in honor of those who have been brutally murdered as a result of violence against women and the girl child.
It will interest you to know that I had a discussion with my team just yesterday in the local content, and we're trying to be quite innovative with our approach. We've decided to create a database of skilled artisans. We're going to have them profiled and segmented by their skills, and we would love to interface with you and get into the register of all the trained artisans, and even not just artisans, people across all our talents, ICT, like we said, engineers, the health physicians and others. And then we could have a robust, verifiable database of young skills that could be recruited.
The Nigerian Senate has strongly condemned the practice of governors dissolving elected local government administrations in their states. Hi, welcome to what's happening. These are the top 10 stories. At number 1, the Minister of State for Health, Dr. Tunji Alosa, announced that Nigeria has made significant progress in the response to HIV/AIDS and is on track to end the disease by 2030. He made his statement during a media conference to mark the 2023 World AIDS Day. The theme for the 2023 commemoration is Let Communities Lead. Dr. Alauso also unveiled national HIV/AIDS, viral hepatitis and sexually transmitted infections policy documents aimed at strengthening the existing framework for action to reduce the spread of these diseases and manage their impact. At number 2, the Nigerian senators strongly condemned the practice of governors dissolving elected local government administrations in their states. The Senate noted that despite constitutional provisions guarding against governors' interference in local government affairs, they often act with impunity. The condemnation followed a motion presented by Senator Abba Moro, who expressed concern over the dissolution of democratically elected councils in Benue State. Senators highlighted that 16 states run the local government areas with sole administrators or caretaker committees, which is inconsistent with the 1999 Constitution of Nigeria. At number 3, the federal government has announced that a new minimum wage regime will come into effect on April 1st, 2024. The current 30,000 naira minimum wage is set to expire at the end of March 2024. The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Idris Mohammed, stated that a committee is being constituted and discussions with Labour are ongoing. He mentioned that a new wage will be implemented by April, replacing the current regime. The government aims to establish a proper salary structure for workers across the country. At number 4, the House of Representatives Committee on Federal Roads Maintenance has expressed concern over the deplorable state of roads in Nigeria, causing untold hardship to citizens. The committee's chairman, Aderemi Oseni, stated that despite the efforts of the Federal Roads Maintenance Agency, FEMA, the condition of the nation's road continued to deteriorate. He noted that FEMA is perceived as corrupt and inefficient by the public. The committee aims to address these issues and find solutions to improve road infrastructure and alleviate the challenges faced by Nigerians. At number 5, gunmen reportedly attacked the resident of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, resident electoral commissioner in Lokoja, Kogi State. The attack occurred around 3:30 a.m. with armed men engaging in a gun battle with security personnel for over 30 minutes. While there were no reported casualties, property was damaged during the exchange of gunfire. The incident follows a previous mob attack on the INEC state office. INEC has called for a thorough investigation and increased security protection for its personnel and assets in Kogi State. At number 6, a Nigerian Air Force helicopter on Friday crash-landed and exploded at the NAF base, Port Harcourt. Confirming the crash in a statement, the NAF Director of Public Relations and Information, Air Commodore Edward Gapquet, said the NAF Mi-35P had taken off to embark on an operation against oil thieves in Rivers State. He added that 5 persons on board survived with minor injuries. At number 7, the Serkin Fulani of Kwara State, Alhaji Usman Adamu, along with his brother Gidado Idris, have been sentenced to life imprisonment by a Kwara State High Court in Ilorin. The trio was convicted for conspiracy to kidnap and actual kidnapping. They were accused of kidnapping Abubakar Ahmed, and collecting a ransom of 1 million naira before releasing him after 20 days in captivity. The court found them guilty of agreeing to commit the crime even if they weren't physically present at the scene. The judge lamented that community leaders breached the security of their subjects for the love of money. At number 8, the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria (FAN) has prohibited the usage of travel sack, popularly known as Ghana Must Go, for travelers using the country's airports. The rule particularly applies to those traveling through the country's international airports. FAN said the use of Ghana Must Go sack as a means of packaging baggage has caused airlines huge losses and also damaged the conveyor belt system. Ghana Must Go sack is a popular load carriage bag in Nigeria that comes in different sizes and colors. Many Nigerians use it to pack light to heavy luggage, and it's one of the affordable bags on sale. At number 9, Saudi Arabia, Russia and other major oil producing nations have announced plans to further reduce oil production in 2024 to support prices. The decision came after a virtual meeting of OPEC ministers. Saudi Arabia extended its voluntary oil production cut of 1 million barrels per day until March 2024. Russia increased its oil export cut from 300,000 to 500,000 barrels per day. Other countries including Iraq, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Kazakhstan, Algeria and Oman also agreed to make smaller cuts. Despite the announcement, oil prices dropped, with the market expecting more significant measures. At number 10, Iranian delegates walked out of United Nations UN climate talks in the United Arab Emirates in protest over the presence of Israeli representatives. The Iranian delegation considered Israel's participation as contrary to the goals and guidelines of the conference and left the venue in protest. Iran also blamed Israel and the United States for a resumption of fighting in the Gaza Strip on Friday. The walkout comes amid broader discussions at the climate conference about global efforts to address climate change. That's all for today. See you next time on What's Happening.
Welcome to the weekend rundown of Nigerian newsmakers. Here are the stories that made the Nigerian news headlines this week. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was the man of the week. PBAT, as he is fondly called, made his first budget presentation since assuming office on May 29, 2023, to the Joint National Assembly. While the ceremony itself was commendable, he did get a lot of laudable comments reflecting on the reforms he has made in the Nigerian economy in the last 6 months since he took office. However, he did cause quite a stir for those of us watching at home when he was ushered into the hallowed chambers with the song "On Your Mandate, We Will Stand." That was a big no-no. Last time I checked, he is the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. No, we expect an apology from the National Assembly concerning that. Other than that slight goof, everything went A-okay, and Mr. President earned the applause that came his way. He has asked the National Assembly to speedily consider and approve the 2024 budget in 30 days to maintain the January-December fiscal calendar. Still in the hallowed chambers, the Senate and the House of Representatives have received 32 bills seeking the creation of new universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education. However, the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, and Nigerians have cautioned against establishing new institutions without adequately funding existing ones. We agree. Some netizens have even described this move as a misplaced priority and political posturing. We haven't heard the last of this story just yet. OAU student Zubair Enitang successfully completed a 5 to 8 hour hand washathon at the Students' Union Building Motor Park. The 200-level student began the challenge on Friday afternoon, garnering support from thousands of students and officials. Various artists and university officials joined in solidarity, and Eniton expressed fulfillment upon completing the task in front of her mother. She was, however, admitted to the institution's clinic for a medical check after completing the 58-hour fit. On the Nigerian scene, Nigerian music sensation Rema has cancelled all December performances, prioritizing his health after years of touring. Despite chart-topping success, including Calm Down with Selena Gomez, Rema says he needs to rest. Still on the music scene, Mr. Lonely at the Top YBNL's Ashake has emerged as Nigeria's most streamed artist on Spotify for 2023, with multiple tracks including, you guessed right, Lonely at the Top, dominating the charts in Nigeria, Ghana and Togo. Hamas and Israel are at it again. Heavy fighting broke out across the Gaza Strip as the Israeli army resumed combat operations against Hamas after efforts to extend the truce failed. The resumption of hostilities came at about 7 a.m. local time on Friday as the deadline for the end of the week-long pause passed. Gaza's health ministry said that dozens of Palestinians were killed and injured during the initial resumption of Israeli strikes. To quote former U.S. President Jimmy Carter, "We will not learn how to live together in peace by killing each other's children." And that's it on this episode of Nigerian Newsmakers. We invite you to share your thoughts on any of the stories. Enjoy your weekend.
Hi, welcome to What's Happening. These are the top 5 stories. At number 1, Chief Executive Officer of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, Brigadier General Buba Marwa, retired, has issued a stern warning against internal sabotage in the renewed war against substance abuse and illicit drug trafficking in Nigeria. He delivered this caution during the passing out ceremony of an additional 2,500 cadets of senior officers basic course sustained at the NDLEA Academy in Jos. Marwa emphasized that there would be no room for internal sabotage in the agency's efforts, and he urged the newly graduated officers who complete the addition of 5,000 personnel to the NDLEA workforce to make a significant impact in the roles. At number 2, the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps NSCDC spokesperson Comfort Okumai has clarified that the presence of NSCDC personnel at the Junior Secondary School Gwarimpa was at the invitation of the school authority. The school principal had requested security cover due to reported criminal activities, including unauthorized access to school premises by individuals jumping over the perimeter fence. The invitation was based on the need for security during examinations and to address the increasing number of notorious students. However, on November 29th, the school was reportedly invaded by expelled students and their collaborators, leading to mayhem, destruction of teachers' cars, and an attack on NSCDC personnel, staff, and students. The situation required backup from armed NSCDC personnel to restore order. At number 3, the Anambra State AIDS Control Agency, ANSACA, has reported that approximately 98,960 people are living with HIV/AIDS in Anambra State. Commissioner for Health in Anambra, Dr. Afam Obidike, provided this information during a media briefing ahead of the 2023 World AIDS Day, which is to be observed today. The global theme for World AIDS Day is Let Communities Lead, and it has been domesticated in Nigeria as communities' leadership to end AIDS by 2030. Anambra State's HIV prevalence is ranked as the 5th highest in the country, and it is the highest in the southeast region. The data indicates that 58% of those affected know their status, and only 44,808 individuals are currently on treatment. At number 4, the Israeli military announced it had resumed combat operations, accusing Hamas of violating the truce first by firing rockets. It said its planes were bombing terrorist targets in the enclave. Heavy fighting broke out across the Gaza Strip as the Israeli military resumed combat operations against Hamas after efforts to extend the truce failed. The resumption of hostilities came at about 7 a.m. local time on Friday as a deadline for the end of the week-long pause. Gaza's health ministry said that dozens of Palestinians were killed and injured during the initial resumption of Israeli strikes. At number 5, the Super Falcons of Nigeria took a significant step towards qualifying for the 2024 African Women's Cup of Nations with a 5-0 victory over Cape Verde at the MKO Abiola National Stadium in Abuja. Despite the absence of some key players, the Nigerian team showcased their strength with Uchenna Kanu and substitute Esther Okoronko both scoring twice. The 9-time African champions displayed their prowess, starting with Gift Monday's 22nd yard free kick in the 4th minute. Kanu added a second goal in the 25th minute, capitalizing on a goal-mouth scramble following a corner kick. That's all for today. See you next time on What's Happening.
The progress of the Commission has been monumental in protecting the rights of Nigerians. You recall the SARS protest, the huge violations that happened during the SARS protest. With the guidance of the Commission, the government was able to set up SARS panels in 29 out of the 36 states in this country. You know the one that was set up in Abuja, which was set up by the Commission itself. We were able to indict some police officers. We were able to also pay compensation of about 430 million, which was the first time in this country that people whose human rights were violated were paid compensation. States like Ekiti and Lagos also paid compensation. The next stage now is to see how we can collate all the reports from all the 29 states and see how both the federal and state government can deal with these cases of compensation and trial. Also, those who are recommended for disciplinary action to the Police Service Commission, the Police Service Commission is looking into this, and those who are recommended to the various states for prosecution, this action is also going on in all these areas. Now, in the issue of awareness, now the Commission receives about above 2 million complaints in a year. What does that mean? That means more people are aware that their rights are being violated and are seeking for assistance. And in a year, we process at least up to 70 to 80% of this, address up to 70, 80% of these complaints. And then you find out that people are more aware today about their rights. People are able to go to court, even though most of the court decisions are not being obeyed. But we are pushing. So you can see increasing progress. The area that has really been a challenge is the issue of terrorism and insurgency and criminalities. So we call on the law enforcement agents to up their game, because a lot of resources are going into security in this country. So we need to see commensurate results. Generally, anyway, one would say that the scale of Boko Haram activities has really gone down. We cannot, but there are still sporadic attacks here and there, jeopardizing the life of Nigerians. So we want a peaceful environment, and so we continue to ask for more. There is improvement, but we continue to ask for more because we want a totally free environment, totally free society where we can pursue our livelihood without fear, where people can go to the farm and farm without being escorted by security, where children can go to school without being feared that their school will be bombed before they get home, where people can go to the market. You can see some place in the southeast, you don't go out on Saturdays. We want to restore full normalcy. So until all these things are restored, we have to continue asking. We have to continue asking the authorities to do their best.
And we should have done maybe a posthumous review of the Buhari regime, so that we will say to ourselves that we will never repeat this again. That was one of the worst human rights violation period in recent history of Nigeria, which led to the deaths of thousands and thousands of people in the hands of security agencies, torture, inhuman and degrading treatment, and the rise of non-state actors in the violation of human rights, of which even Amnesty International was a victim, where people were assembled in front of their office and threatened to burn down Amnesty International office. That particular era was promoted by the government. I can tell you that categorically. Not even in Palestine today do you see an attack on Amnesty International office, even though they might have things to say against Israel. But I want to also use this opportunity to focus on something very controversial, because, especially within Nigeria, is the rise of persecution on the basis of religion in Nigeria, which is now very common across Nigeria. I don't want to say northern Nigeria, because recently there was a fellow who was arrested in Ibadan and taken to Kwara State. His name is Tani Olong, because he expressed opinions that were not popular with the religious chieftains there. And he spent over 180 days in detention. He was just recently released. They were filing one case or the other against him using kangaroo courts, what they call upper area courts, to prosecute federal crimes. And this, they call this cyber bullying. Some of them said it's defamation, cyber crime, all kinds of things. Today, one of the trending issues is a woman known as Rhoda Jato, who also is now in Bauchi prison, being prosecuted, I would say persecuted, for sharing a video condemning the killing of Deborah Samuel. It is unconscionable that the people who murdered Deborah Samuel are walking free, and the woman who merely shared a video of people condemning her unjust murder is in prison. Murder. It is a human rights issue that must not be ignored, and Amnesty must also take a position on this. The last one is the continued detention of Nnamdi Kanu. I think Amnesty should also take a major position on it, because there is a particular international criminality involved, which is extraordinary rendition of person. He was abducted in Kenya, put on a plane to be in Nigeria without legal representation, and it's unacceptable. And I say this because we are here fighting for Palestinians. There are some of us that are still fighting for Öcalan in Turkey. It's also a self-determination person. Why can't we be very clear about the injustice done to Nnamdi Kanu? Is it because he's touching on a topic that all of us are uncomfortable with, which is the unity of Nigeria? But I think when it comes to amnesty, there should not be boundaries over fundamental rights.
The police force was founded on the fundamental principle: protecting lives and property. The Nigeria Police Force has a duty to make Nigeria safer and more secured for economic development and growth, to create a safe and secure environment for everyone living in Nigeria, that all people in Nigeria should have freedom to be free from fear and anxiety. Every person has the right to live safe. Nigeria has had a long history of insecurity. And one of the underlying causes of insecurity in our country is mental health deterioration. And one thing that is very, very certain in mental health deterioration, if you look at our country, you will be able to relate that poverty is one of the major causes of mental health deterioration in our country. The police officers' wives has a role to play, not just for their families, but for the society at large, to influence and to be a role model for other women in our society. I urge the Nigeria government to ensure that all women, particularly the vulnerable, have equal rights to economic resources as well as access to basic services, ownership and control over lands and other forms of property, inheritance, natural resources, appropriate technology, financial services, including microfinance. The government has the major role to lead because the government controls all the tools.
As you already know, POWA is also a non-profit, not governmental organization which has the basic objectives of adding values and improving the lives of its members and police families nationwide. Let me also use this opportunity to inform you of our annual convention known as POWA Week. It is a 3-day event starting on the 6th to 8th of December 2023, next week. And the theme of the Congress is Sisterhood in POWA, Inspiring Progress Together, during which I will be empowering widows, wives of our fallen heroes, among other activities. At this juncture, I appreciate this award, excellence, immensely. Thank you so much, and I want you to know that it means a lot to me to be recognized in this way. Thank you, ma'am.
In the years of our struggle for democracy, when many of us were in the trenches fighting the military and struggling to restore democratic rule in Nigeria, it was a period where many of us were sent to jail, many were forced to exile, and many lost their lives. That struggle was the basis for the liberation of our country and the restoration of democracy. We have always reminded the country it's 24 years since democracy was restored in this country. And the democracy we are seeing now, or civil rule, was not a lottery given to Nigerians. It wasn't a bazaar. It was not also a gift. It was a product of struggle and sacrifice by Nigerians who withstood the brutality, the brigandage, and the persecution of the military that have ruled our country for over 2 decades at that time. Amnesty has always been with us. And since the restoration of democracy, you have also played a pivotal role in making sure that the game is played according to the rule as far as democracy is concerned. At a certain time, you yourself became a target of the state, but you stood your ground, and with the support of civil organizations, you are able to weather the storm. Every year, we gather here for the presentation of this document. From the beginning to the end of the year, at least Nigerians are guaranteed that there is an organization that will stand in the defense of their rights and that will set a clear agenda as to the pursuit of those rights. Despite Nigeria being under democratic rule, there is an evident and indisputable cases of systemic rights violations. State actors are still unable to adjust themselves to realities of democracy. We have seen in the states where individual rights have been violated, and we have seen the weaknesses of local organization when it comes to the issue of standing in defense of those rights. The complementary role you are playing has gone a long way in holding those in the position of power to account, and also giving hope to Nigerians that your right is your right if only you can stand and defend it and fight for it. We are very much grateful for your effort. I believe that consistently, if we continue on this trajectory, we will be building our democracy, sustaining it, and also making sure that we don't slide back to those things that we fought against. You have seen it in the West African sub-region where democracy is suffering a setback. Military have returned to power in countries of Guinea, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Gabon, Chad, and Sudan. And they have always cited cases that the civilian authorities are not behaving different than the military and government. And if we want to sustain and protect our democracy, it is important that those very fundamental elements that differentiate democratic rule with military dictatorship are upheld and also are defended and protected. If you have a judiciary that is compromised, if you have continuous cases of rights violation, if you have elections that are being rigged, when you have state apparatus behaving as if they are not under democratic order, then we have already taken the road to tyranny. I must commend and appreciate those who never gave up, because we have seen that many of those whom we have started this struggle during the military have actually decided to give up. But there are people here who have been in the trenches the day before yesterday, today, and they are still there. And it is because the younger ones have not been able to occupy the space. But we hope that people like Rafsanjani will someday retire, for the younger ones to take the mantle and continue the struggle until we have
to join a program creating things. I have for gender, I have a new, which is a new Nigeria for every woman. So, and then in the next week or so, I'll be calling for volunteers. So there will be orange marshals who will they will volunteer from the ward. So whenever there's violence against women, or even men for that matter, there are marshals who are in that ward who can report it. I will not know what is happening. I live in Maitama. I can't know what is happening in Nyanya or in Gwarimpa. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I'm trying to involve all Nigerians, especially young Nigerians, that this is making this country a great place again is our collective responsibility. If we're going to get rid of violence against women and girls, then we all have to be involved. You can't say it does not concern you, because when you see some man beating up a woman, imagine that it's your daughter. Imagine that person. I've seen people, somebody showed me a video once that upset me so much. I don't even know, because maybe they were on drugs, I don't know. A man was raping a woman on the street. People were walking by. Somebody even videoed it. Now, that is not who we are as Nigerians and is not who we're supposed to be. The people that I know us to be, everybody would have stopped it. And that is what I'm hoping that we can all go back to being. We all complain the country, we don't like the way the country is, but we have to start by fixing our own. Once we all each do our bit, then everything will get better. First of all, I'm trying to get the men, I'm creating awareness, even with things like this. The truth is that the men are not unfeeling or they don't want the progress of Nigeria. I think enough awareness has not been created amongst men. And that's what I'm trying to do leading up to that. I've gotten a lot of support from men. I have a lot of men who have opted voluntarily to be on the Women Affairs Committee. So I think that, and also, the truth is that when we compare ourselves to other countries, we don't look good. Not just women in Nigeria, the whole country does not look good. We're supposed to be the giant of Africa. Using the statistics of the 9th Senate, where there were at least 8 women, we ranked 182 out of 186 countries in the world when it comes to gender participation in governance and in government. How do we say we are the giant? We have to be ahead in all the human capital development indices. So I am working on it, taking my time and trying to find the best way to maneuver.
Mr. Wike is not good for FCT ministership and he should be assigned to another ministry. We have allegations that support that Mr. Wike has been awarding contract to his friends and family members using public funds to finance his lifestyle. This is unacceptable behavior for any public official, let alone a minister of the federal government. Furthermore, we have reason to believe that Mr. Wike has been intimidating and harassing political opponents, stifling free speech and press freedom in the process. This is a clear violation of the fundamental human rights enshrined in relevant section of our Constitution. As concerned citizens, we cannot sit back and watch as our hard-earned resources paid to the FCT in various forms of taxes and levies are being mismanaged and wasted by corrupt officials like Wike. We call on the relevant anti-graft agencies to conduct a thorough investigation into these allegations. We also urge all residents of the FCT to join us in this fight against corruption. We must hold our public officials accountable and demand transparency and accountability in the management of public resources. We must ensure that our government institutions are working for the benefit of all citizens, not just a few selected people.
I think Amnesty should also take a major position on it because there's a particular international criminality involved, which is extraordinary rendition of president. He was abducted in Kenya, put on a plane to be in Nigeria without legal representation, and it's unacceptable. And I say this because we are here fighting for Palestinians. There are some of us that are still fighting for Öcalan in Turkey. It's also a self-determination question. Why can't we be very clear about the injustice done to Nnamdi Kanu? Is it because he's touching on a topic that all of us are uncomfortable with, which is the unity of Nigeria? But I think when it comes to amnesty, there should not be boundaries over fundamental rights.
On Monday morning, as I was at the airport, I learned unknown gunmen had shot a police DPO and his staff who were buying fuel at the filling station. The same point I passed less than 24 hours. And it's extremely sad. The DPO was still alive, you know, probably extending his hand for help, and people were interested in videoing it and sharing the video, and nobody extended a helping hand. People are no longer horrified by things like this.
Amnesty International Nigeria on Wednesday, 29th November, unveiled the Nigeria Human Rights Agenda 2023, a report to draw the government's attention to human rights crimes against Nigerians and help the government to plan and take action in the pursuit of justice and equality. Advocates, policymakers, and activists were gathered to address pressing human rights issues facing the nation.
We support our government through the National Human Rights Commission to do the needful, because we are not government. We are just a non-state actor working towards and complementing the sincere effort of government to deal with abuses. Therefore, we are not replicating, or we are not, taking the roles of, say, police or, soldier. No, we are only providing them with credible information. We are only providing them with techniques that they can use to enhance the work that they are doing.
One of the ways in which we engage the government is by drafting a human rights agenda. The human rights agenda is a document, a very robust document, which we are going to present very soon. And it contains all the major human rights issues in Nigeria. And the reason why we do that is that when a new government comes in, we want to draw their attention in a concrete way to what are the human rights issues in Nigeria. Everyone knows what the issues are, but we document them because that is part of our job, and we present them to the government. Some of the key issues that we draw attention to are, number one, freedom of expression, conflicts, and we also pay attention to the issue of the Niger Delta, where for almost 6 decades, the people of the oil-producing areas have been living in a very squalid condition, with their environment polluted by oil companies without any accountability.
Protection of human rights. And all CPs, all commissioners of commands were told to cascade down to all the area commanders, to all DPOs, that human rights of Nigerians must be protected. I want to say that soon you'll be seeing different Nigerian police officers, and you'll be asking, are you sure this is a Nigerian police officer? Because things have started to change.
Despite Nigeria being under democratic rule, there is an evident and indisputable cases of systemic rights violations. State actors are still unable to adjust themselves to realities of democracy. We have seen in the states where individual rights have been violated, and we have seen the weaknesses of local organizations when it comes to the issue of standing in defense of those rights. The complementary role you are playing has gone a long way in holding those in the position of power to account, and also giving hope to Nigerians that your right is your right if only you can stand and defend it and fight for it.
To also use this opportunity to focus on something very controversial, because especially within Nigeria, is the rise of persecution on the basis of religion in Nigeria, which is now very common across Nigeria. I don't want to say northern Nigeria, because recently there was a fellow who was arrested in Ibadan and taken to Kwara State. His name is Tani Olong. because he expressed opinions that were not popular with the religious chieftains there. And he spent over 180 days in detention.
Amnesty International urged President Bola Tinubu's administration to ensure that respect for human rights is at the center of their policies and to implement findings of previous investigation panels on human rights violations under the past government to ensure justice and accountability.
When we say there are violations, government should go and investigate and take appropriate action. But if you cover the person that perpetrates that, crime against humanity, then you are failing in your responsibility. If you have the responsibility to take action to prevent it from happening, or to fish out those who perpetrated that action and give them the necessary punishment, it will serve as a deterrent. Tomorrow, somebody will not do. But if you cover it on the basis of any sentiment, whether political, affiliation or any sentiment, you are actually undermining the Constitution and you are actually helping to broaden the abuses that is happening in the country.
Even when you are talking of human rights, we too need to be protected. I think somebody was saying it. Of recent, I think 1 or 2 police officers were killed in in Imo. So the issue is, who protects our own rights? When there is election, whether you like it or not, we are being disenfranchised. We will go and conduct election because of the security, but we will not vote. But nobody has ever said it one day and said, what are police officers? Are they not Nigerians?
Even though in the human rights agenda we drew the attention of the government to what is happening now, we also say that, okay, in the last decades, a lot of things have happened. And one of them is the 2015 killing of Shiites in Zaria, where soldiers killed like 350 people within 12 hours in December 2015. And a lot of these things have happened in Nigeria and they have been happening. And what we are saying is that the government should institute thorough, effective, impartial investigation into these matters. There are many people who have been wounded by these incidents and they will never recover until they get justice.
Executive Secretary, National Human Rights Commission, Anthony Okechukwu Ojukwu, said the Commission has made monumental progress in addressing violations against citizens and creating awareness around human rights issues.
People are no longer, worried by sights of people dying or being shot or being killed. We can't go on like this. We can't go on like this. So we fully associate ourselves with an agenda that calls the government. The provision of security and welfare of the people is the primary purpose of government, and we demand it. We must get it. Unless we get it, then we are not living a life. That means human dignity, human life is nothing, and we cannot continue like this. So we fully associate ourselves with the lofty ideals of this human rights agenda for Nigeria, and we ask for the cooperation of all. And thank God the police is here. The police is our friend. I'm sure they will help us to realize those.
Omobude Olumale is a resident of Shetugo village in Kuje Area Council in the FCT. He's on the usual gentle maneuvering on the 2-kilometer road that leads to his house in Shetugo village.
We live in a terrible situation here, coming home at 9, mostly at 9. And when it rains, that place down there you see is always filled. To access this place is always a problem. Please come to our aid. We are suffering. Let us also be like other people, that when they are driving home, they are smiling.
Similarly, every resident of Shetugo village goes through this harrowing experience. applying the road on a daily basis.
No pharmacy, no clinic for this area at all. So if they say the road they quarter safe, people no go suffer for here. But if woman, they labor, so far away people for this area they suffer, and only God know how then they take manage themselves for this area.
It's not been easy. In fact, if you go to my house now, my small car is parked there. Because of the bad road, it just destroyed it totally. So we really need intervention. The community needs a good road.
We have suffering for this road for many years. Shetiko doesn't have road. Then the last time, our chairman, the time of election, our chairman sent some contractors. Them came here, and we are thinking that we have already succeeded for Shetiko Road. They only dig the gutter, destroy the road more, and get away.
The village is home to over 2,000 people, comprising civil servants, farmers and traders, where Adamo Dalhat Yusuf oversees as village head.
You see, it's not easy. It's not easy at all. Even myself, if I go out and come back, I don't always want to go out again because of the bad road. Like most people complain, the shock absorbers. They'll say, their shock absorbers are bad because of the bad road. I always tell them to be patient. Time will come when the government will tie the road for us.
According to the Speaker of the Council had earlier interfaced with the members of the community, where the chairman noted that the project has been captured in the 2023 budget.
The person that is representing the chairman there, he assured them that by grace of God, next year, we'll work on that road.
While Shetiko's residents continue to endure the devastating effects of the deplorable road, they hope by 2024 their suffering will come to an end.
The medium-term expenditure framework as well as fiscal strategy paper were indeed presented to the Council today. And it made assumptions about reference price for the price of crude oil, which is at $73.96, as well as an exchange rate of 700 naira. It was presented on the background of the commendable measures that have been taken since June in order to restore macroeconomic stability. Mr. President is also committed to the budget process and its integrity. So he wants to ensure that monies that are appropriated can be spent in the period for which they are appropriated, one. And then in terms of presentation of the budget, Mr. President has been engaging with the National Assembly leadership, even ahead of the presentation, to say these are our assumptions, these are our thought processes, so that it can reduce the lead time for which the budget has to go through such considerations.
Bold, brave, courageous, and decisive measures that Mr. President has taken is being rewarded by processing for Nigeria $1.5 billion of immediate financing, which is provided that we do everything on our own side, it will be in before the end of the year. And it comes in one go, it doesn't drip as will be done for a project, and it is really to support the reform effort.
You are already aware of all the about 15 or 14 items as part of the agreements, but we went beyond mere agreements to tell them that something different this time is happening, because one part of the agreement was to file it in a court of law, which we have set the process already. And the other one was the presidential approval. There cannot be any presidential approval more than the Federal Executive Council. So we presented them to the Federal Executive Council. We analyzed on each and every aspect of the agreement, and to show the genuineness and also provide for harmonious and a good industrial relationship.
bad attitudes like a flat tire, you can't go very far with it. Gratitude, on the other hand, is the fuel that determines your altitude. Altitude in this case refers to success, growth, status, progress, promotion, prosperity, etc. I'm sure you get my drift. What's the linkage between gratitude and attitude? Gratitude is attitude, but attitude is not necessarily gratitude. This means that not every attitude conveys gratitude, but every gratitude is an attitude. Attitude is a conscious or unconscious state of mind which could be either positive or negative. Our attitude determines our reactions to things, people, situations, events, actions, words, etc. One of those reactions is gratitude. I have chosen to speak about gratitude today because it is an attitude that's in short supply. As I reflect on the trajectory of my life, as I observe my world, as I examine the supposedly ordinary occurrences of my daily existence, I find that I have every reason to be thankful. I have millions of reasons to be grateful. I can beat my chest and say, if not for God, my story, your story, our story would have been different. God found me worthy to be a receptacle of His blessings. And even Grace Avenue, I commit daily to walk on Mercy Highway, and Glory Lane is my destination. I'm saying that God is and has been with me every step of the way, and I'm eternally grateful for this. I don't need anyone to tell me that I'm special. God loves me. There's nothing I have done to deserve His love, but God loves me. God has been merciful towards me. He showers me so much love that I unconsciously act spoiled. In my coming and going every day, I see His goodness abound towards me. Some people say to me, it's okay for you to talk the way you talk because you have been lucky. You are wrong. I haven't been lucky. I have been blessed. I have been so blessed that I have been struggling with how to demonstrate to God my gratitude. What can I do to show God how grateful I am? Who am I that He chose me to bless me? Why am I, oh Lord? This is the question I ask every day. Why me? In every sticky situation, I saw your love. In the darkest times, I saw your salvation. I have never felt alone and abandoned even when I tried to run from Him. In my imperfection, I saw His perfection. In His perfection, I saw my imperfection, and I eventually understood. There's no such thing as a perfect person in the Bible. Instead, we find a large number of figures who are well acquainted with sin. Take Abraham for instance. Surely we know that Abraham was a good, God-fearing man. But when he encountered a dangerous situation, he didn't hesitate, not for 1 second, to put his wife in harm's way to save his own skin. Yes, Abraham was a man who argued with God and fought for justice. But when the situation involved members of his own family, then he didn't get involved. And while Abraham found great success in his lifetime, increased his wealth many times over, at his death, he didn't share any of it with his followers. In fact, he even neglected the rest of his children, leaving everything he acquired, his material and spiritual possessions, to just one heir, to Isaac alone. We also find flaws in Moses, who grew up a prince in Pharaoh's court. Early in his life, Moses killed a man. Years later, when God called to him at the burning bush, Moses looked for a way out, pleading with God to send another in his place. And during the years in the wilderness, Moses grew so angry with our stiff-necked ancestors that when they were afflicted by hunger, thirst, plague, and war, he was not beyond letting them suffer a bit before taking up their cause. In the end, after leading the Israelites to the promised land, not only was Moses not worthy of bringing them in, he wasn't even allowed to enter himself. Like Abraham, Moses was acquainted with sin. Perhaps the best example I can find of the imperfect man is David, whose story is told in the first and second books of Samuel. David was still a young man when he defeated Goliath and made his name. This was the first of many battles for David. In his lifetime, he was a skilled fighter, a musician, and poet. He he wrote the book of Psalms. He was an emotional man with intense passion, which he expressed to his friend Jonathan, his lovers, his wives, as well as to God. David remained loyal to King Saul, even when in fits of rage Saul tried to kill him. David captured Jerusalem from the Jebusites, hence its name, City of David. Finally, after becoming king, David used his charismatic personality to bring the tribes together and form a united monarchy, a kingdom that lasted through his and Solomon's reign. And yet, despite his glorious achievements, David was far from perfect. In fact, he committed one of the gravest sins that anyone could ever imagine. Late one afternoon, David was looking out over the rooftops of his city, admiring the view, when a beautiful woman, Bathsheba, caught his eye. David told his guards to bring her to the palace, where he learned that she was married to Uriah, the Hittite, who was serving in the army, fighting to enlarge David's kingdom. This didn't stop David from having his way with her. A short while later, Bathsheba told David that she was pregnant, and David, in trying to cover his sin, arranges for her husband to be sent to the battlefront, where he is killed. When Nathan tells David that he has sinned, a contrite heart like this the world has never seen. The depth of his sorrow as he cried, "I have sinned," continued to reverberate throughout the ages. The Jews tell us that there are three kinds of special prayers. There's a prayer offered by Moses, an exacting line by line, word by word, letter by letter prayer. God responded to Moses' prayers like no other, but only after he received every line, word and letter. Then there was the prayer said by a king. David said this prayer better than any other king. It wasn't quite as efficacious as Moses' prayer, but still, God would hear it and eventually respond. Finally, there's the prayer of the poor. This, the Jews say, is the most special prayer of all, because God always listens to the prayer of the poor. When such a prayer is uttered, God pushes aside all the other supplications that surround him and responds to it first. So how did David do his dance? How did this king, this sinner, this jester maintain his honor and preserve his life? How was it possible for him to be called the Messiah by the Jews? I will tell you. Instead of using the prayer of the king, David learned to say the prayer of the poor. The prayer God always hears immediately. The prayer God always responds to. But how is it that a wealthy man, a king, could be entitled to offer the prayer of the poor? I can't help